So let's talk about the impeachment trial and how both sides should actually scare us with what happened. Thank you for joining me in A Voice in the Middle. My name is Dustin. A couple of things about me right off the gate. I am a registered Republican. I actually hold a volunteered elected position in Arizona, and I'm a proud member of the Republican Party, but I also understand that talking points and spin and talking heads is not doing anything to help this country right now. And that's all we're getting a lot of on both sides of the aisle. So the purpose of this channel is to take a look at the events of today, see if we can find some common ground in certain areas, or when we need to call out both sides, we're going to call out both sides. And that's what today's video is going to be about. I have thought long and hard since the impeachment trial concluded about what my thoughts really were about it, about the actions of Democrats during the impeachment trial and the actions of Republicans since. And I have a lot of concern on both sides, and it's something that honestly scares me a little bit. It's we as a country are taking whichever talking point we want to agree with. If we are Republican, we're taking the talking points on the right. If we're Democrat, we're taking the talking points on the left. We are not thinking critically, and it is going to lead us into an area that we are going to be very scared of if we actually go into. So please, if you like this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. As a brand new channel, especially dealing with political topics right now, it is very hard for me to get really any traction to get these videos out right now. So I rely on you. If you like it, please hit that like and subscribe button. So let's get into it. The impeachment trial. First and foremost, if you want to know what my entire thoughts are about it, click the link up above. I go into a lot more detail about it. We're going to cover again some of the information I brought up there with some of my concerns about it, but that gives you a little bit more information. As far as the impeachment trial itself goes, my first concern and that I want to address, and the hypocrisy in all of it, comes from the Democrat side and the fact that this was an impeachment trial to begin with. As all my previous videos have stated, I am not a huge fan of Donald Trump. I do not think he is the second coming. I do not think he was the greatest president we have ever had. He had a lot of flaws. He had a lot of great policy, though, also. Just because I was not a fan of Donald Trump, I did vote for him in the first election and also the second, mainly because at the end of the day, even if I don't agree with the behavior of a president, I could not bring myself to vote for what I consider to be a radical leftist agenda that would take us into socialism and in a lot of ways really kind of threaten what this country was founded on from a constitutional standpoint. And so because of that, I did vote for him in both elections. First election a little bit more willingly. I wanted to give him a shot. I thought it was a fresh breath of air. In the second election, it was because I'm honestly scared of what the left is going to do or attempt to do. But into the impeachment, this trial never should have happened unless they're going to turn around and they're going to start holding Maxine Waters accountable and censoring her or impeaching her, whatever that process would look like in Congress. Unless they're going to hold Nancy Pelosi accountable. Unless they're potentially going to hold Kamala Harris accountable. Unless they're going to potentially hold all the people accountable that said these are just peaceful protests. When everyone knew they weren't. Everyone knew that there was riots going on. But when you just call them peaceful protests, what you're giving is you're giving people a free pass. You're saying, hey, don't worry. Whatever you do, you're going to be okay because it's peaceful protest. Right? This is hurting the Trump administration, so it's peaceful protest. And that was my biggest issue with it. Is the fact that, no, whether you actually believe what Donald Trump said incited what happened on Capitol Hill, all right? If your justification to impeach him after the fact, when he's not even the president anymore, is that this incited riots and it put people's lives at risk. In the words of AOC, I almost died because of it. Well, there's a lot of store owners that almost died then. There's a lot of property damage that occurred. There's a lot of lives that were put at risk. During everything with the BLM movement and the riots that happened and the rhetoric from the Democrats. You know, telling people to go and get in people's faces, don't let them eat lunch, to eat their dinner, in peace. Show them we don't want them here. That rhetoric is inflammatory. And I had an issue with that rhetoric. I also had an issue with the rhetoric of President Donald J. Trump. But the Democrats aren't going to do that. They're not going to turn around and they're not going to impeach their fellow Democrats. I guarantee the next time a Republican says anything that they consider even to be somewhat out of line, they're going to be calling for the removal, for censoring him, for getting him out of office. It's going to happen. I'll go to Vegas right now and put money on that if that happens. But if a Democrat says anything, it's because they're going to spin it as it's patriotic when we do it. It's not patriotic when you do it, right? And if you are a conservative, these are going to be a lot of the talking points you've already heard, okay? You're going to agree with this. And if you're a Democrat, these are going to be all the talking points you've already heard, and you're going to probably disagree with it. But bear with me, because now I'm not going to let the Republican Party off the hook yet, because there are actions that occurred and behaviors that are occurring within the Republican Party that honestly scare me. And it's something that we need to be understanding, we need to be looking at, we need to be focused about. Because there are some legitimate concerns going on right now. The main one that I want to tackle today is the hypocrisy of how we are handling Republicans that voted for impeachment, both in Congress, in the House of Representatives, and in the Senate. A big talking point of Republicans right now is how Democrats are trying to censor free speech. They're trying to censor differing opinions. That if you don't agree with something they say, they immediately label you a racist or a white supremacist or a Nazi, right? These are all been the ongoing talking points. It's that Democrats are forcing you to have to align within a certain perspective, right? And you have to agree with certain points of view. And if you don't, they're going to ostracize you, right? Here's the reality, though. The Republicans are doing the exact same thing except within their own party, all right? The senators and and I can't think of the congressional representative right now off the top of my head that voted for the impeachment, they are getting so much flack for voting for that. Is they're now being told that they're members of the swamp. Mitch McConnell's comments after the trial was over is getting him a lot of flack. People are saying he's not really a Republican. People saying he needs to get out of office. People saying that people voted for impeachment need to get out of office, that they're not true Republicans. They don't ally with Republican ideals. Personally, I do not know how you vote for impeachment if you are not drafting articles of impeachment for the examples I've given before. If Mitt Romney, Susan Collins turned around right now, drafted up articles of impeachment against Maxine Waters, right, I wouldn't have an issue with how they voted, okay? I do have an issue how they voted, but it's because I view that as a hypocritical vote. You don't like President Trump, you never have, right? So this is your way to grind an axe at him, to try to stand up on your moral high ground, which I'm not going to necessarily fault you for, but if you're going to do that, do the same thing to the other side, right? However, that's not the beef that Republicans are having. There are legitimate reasons to have voted for President Trump to be impeached. There just are. The truth is, I think his actions and his behaviors 100% contributed, not necessarily caused, but contributed towards what took place on Capitol Hill. I believe he should apologize for that. I believe he should own that. I don't necessarily believe it's impeachable, but if a senator or a congressman honestly believes what his actions were, honestly did put lives at risk, I'm not going to fault them for voting for that. But the Republicans are saying no. They're saying you can't be part of the Republican Party anymore, you shouldn't be part of the Republican Party, you turn your back on the Republican Party. That is a dangerous precedence. Because as much as we talk about how the left is forcing you into a certain ideology, we within the Republican Party are doing the exact same thing. Because where do we eventually draw the line? Do we draw it with abortion? If you believe in abortion, you can't be a registered Republican, so get out. Do we draw it on immigration? If you don't believe in a super hardline stance to illegal immigration, you should be thrown out. What about the legislation in legalizing marijuana? If you support legalizing marijuana, you get thrown out. Where does that line stop? And if you think some of the examples I'm giving you are far-fetched, well, they're honestly not. Just in our state meeting we had recently, there was a push to try to throw out the legalization of marijuana in Arizona, which was a voter initiative. Voters voted for it, right? And we, like on the right, like to say all the time that Democrats are the ones suppressing the wills of the voters, but now because they're trying to force their worldview on people, well, now Republicans are doing the exact same thing. At least in Arizona they are, and I know in other states it's similar. When I mentioned that personally, I don't have an issue with the legalization of marijuana, I got a lot of flack for it. When I was told I don't fully support Donald Trump, even though I voted for him, but I didn't support his election fraud claims because I don't think it was proven. And click up above for my actual thoughts on that, because it's not that I don't think anything occurred. I just think we handled it very poorly. I was threatened within the Republican Party. I was threatened to have my name be pushed all the way up to Chairman Ward, to have me kicked out. Because I don't agree with you? We are living in very dangerous times to where we're allowing the polarization of our side, whichever side of the aisle that we sit on, to influence our entire decisions. We are buying into the narrative that if you were to be Republican, you have to agree X. And if you disagree with X, you're not really Republican, and that means you need to go on the other side of the aisle and support the Democrats. That is a horrible area to be in. I mean, the Republican Party here in Arizona and other states did similar things to senators or public figures that don't like President Trump. We turned around and we essentially kicked Cindy McCain out of the party and Jeff Flake out of the party because they didn't support President Trump. I don't have an issue with you not supporting them. I don't know how you necessarily endorse President Biden if you honestly have conservative principles. That's where I'll say that's a little iffy. But it was just simply because they didn't even support President Trump. So where are we going to draw the line, both Democrats and Republicans? Is it you have to agree with 100% of this mandate here? And if you disagree with any part of it, sorry, we don't want you in the party or in the primaries. You can be registered as an independent. Or is it 10%? Or is it 60%? Or is it 50%? Where does that line go? And you're going to see a lot of YouTubers, conservative YouTubers right now, talking about how dangerous the left is for how they're trying to force an agenda on America. And I agree with that 100%. But the same thing is happening to the right. And the same ideologies are being pushed down to where if you do not agree 100% in certain areas, we don't have a place for you here anymore. And this is something we need to be mindful of, and it's something we need to be aware of. And I hope you honestly are paying attention to the little things that are being said. Pay attention to the larger picture. Just because someone, Mitch McConnell, turns around and says, I believe President Trump does share some sort of responsibility, doesn't mean he's a member of the swamp. I'm not saying whether he is or he doesn't, but that's not the standard we should hold to him for that. The reality is, we gave President Trump a free pass for far too long while he was president of the United States. We allowed him to say too many things without calling him out on it. We allowed him to tweet too many derogatory things to other people, that if our own kids, we had found out, were saying to other kids, we probably would have taken their Twitter account away and grounded them. But we allowed it to occur. We didn't hold him accountable for any of his actions during his entire presidency. And now that a couple of people are speaking out against it, now suddenly they shouldn't be Republicans anymore, and we need to get them out of office as soon as possible. Pay attention to what's being told to you. Read between the lines. Understand that the truth is probably not in either two of the extremes. It's probably somewhere more in the middle. My name is Dustin, and I'll talk to you again soon. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you'd like to learn more. Take care.